Welcome to our Denmark slideshow. Michael, John, and I traveled to Copenhagen, Denmark in August of 2006, and this is the story of our travels. Michael received a grant from the American Scandinavian Foundation to spend 8 weeks at the Søren Kierkegaard Research Center to begin work on his dissertation. From this open window at the Research Center, Michael diligently studied, translated, and wrote. He spent many hours in his shirt sleeves going over complicated text. Yet while in Copenhagen, he was also seen eating questionable food, lying around, dragging his son to local landmarks, showing the poor kid off to every random Dane, no matter how small. Anyway, John and I arrived in Copenhagen about a week after Michael, and we were so excited to see the city. But first we had to get over jet lag. It's a long trip for a 4-week-old. We got out eventually, and one of the first places we went to visit was the Botanical Gardens. The large glass house is called the Palm House, and it is the signature building in the gardens. The grounds are picturesque and covered with a vast amount of flora and fauna, including some species that I've never seen before. But it's a lovely place to walk around and enjoy just a peaceful afternoon. Michael and I thought it was a lovely place to attempt our first family picture, which John decided to squaw for. This amused us to no end, and so, being heartless parents, we took multiple pictures of us smiling and him yelling, and we tried to make it up to him later by taking him to see The Little Mermaid, but he wasn't a big fan of that either, as you can see. This is Amalienborg Slot, where the Danish royal family lives. Slot is the Danish word for palace. You may want to take note of that because there will be a quiz at the end. The palace is guarded by these men in big furry hats whose primary purpose seems to be to tell people like me not to sit on the sidewalk. In the center of the palace complex is a statue of one of the kings Friedrich. All the Danish kings in the last 500 years seem to be named either Friedrich or Christian. Again, this is on the quiz. One day we saw this big official-looking limo at Amalienborg that may have been carrying some Danish royalty around, like these folks. The statue of King Friedrich in Amalienborg Slot is looking toward the church that was named after him, Friedrich's Church. Someone thought this wasn't original enough, so the other name for the beautiful dome church is the Marble Church. Friedrich's Church, or Friedrich's Kirke, is surrounded by statues of individuals who made an impact on religious life in Denmark. For example, the king that brought Christianity to Denmark, the first bishop, the last bishop, the Lutheran reformer who told the Catholics where they could go, Grundtvig, who wrote most of the Danish hymns, and, curiously, Kierkegaard, who spent most of his life criticizing the church. Early one Saturday morning, the three of us went to the cemetery near our apartment to visit Kierkegaard's grave. The Danish word Kirkegård, translated churchyard, is a completely different kind of place compared to graveyards in the United States. Beautiful old trees, well-tended paths, shrubs, and lovely flowers make this graveyard look more like a garden, and I've never seen so much life in a place that I usually think of as a place of death. Kierkegaard once wrote, "Go out to the dead in order there to get a look at life. Do not choose an evening for the visit. No, go out there early in the morning, when the morning sun peeps in among the gravestones with shifting lights and shadows. When the beauty and friendliness of the woods, and the different forms of life, and the twittering of the birds almost let you forget that you're among the dead. Then it will seem as if you had entered into a foreign land, into the world of childhood, consisting only of small families." This is Rosenborg Slot, the summer palace of the Danish king Christian IV, and it was built in the early 1600s. Rosenborg Slot is surrounded by Kongshave, or the King's Gardens. Kongshave became something of our home base when we were out exploring. It was one of our favorite places in Copenhagen to enjoy the outdoors. The nice part about it is it's equipped with pretty much everything you need. Nice scenery, benches to sit on when feeding John, decent public bathrooms, interesting sculptures, free wireless, a cafe, a castle with a moat. The Danes also like Kongshave. Many eat their lunch in the park, and it seems to be a favorite destination for groups of friends to get together on a mid-Friday afternoon to start the weekend out right. They bring in bags of food from the grocery and crates of Carlsberg beer. We noticed that some of the groups carrying in the beer were a little bit young. The legal drinking age in Denmark is 16. The month of September was Renaissance Month in Copenhagen, and we attended the kickoff event at Kongens Habe. Vendors served traditional beverages and food from the Danish Renaissance period, including mulled ale and pulser, or sausage, served on a thick bread bun with mustard, onions, and honey. About midway through our stay, we enjoyed an absolutely beautiful week weather-wise. It was in the mid-70s with sunny skies, and John and I practically lived in Kongens Habe. We played, napped, nursed, and strolled around the grounds, and at the end of the day, Michael would ride up on his bike and find us hanging out under a tree. Those few days in particular hold some of my most favorite memories from our time in Copenhagen. One of the unique things about our trip was that we lived in Copenhagen rather than merely visited. Our apartment was in the Nørrebro neighborhood, which has a large immigrant population, made up primarily of Muslims. Almost every night we would walk 3 blocks to a square called Blue-Gård to check our email. Blue-Gård was the site of a number of community activities, including outdoor football, flea markets, independent movie screenings, and children's festivals. I've got to tell you, there's nothing like picking up a warm Danish for breakfast. Our Saturday morning ritual was to pick up a freshly baked Danish and sit in an outdoor cafe drinking coffee, or in our apartment, enjoying the sticky goodness. John did a lot of growing up while we were in Copenhagen. He went from being a tiny little newborn to a giant 2-month-old. By the time we left Denmark, John had spent over half of his life in another country. He's our little world traveler. Michael spent a lot of time talking to John in Danish and downloaded a few songs in Danish for John to listen to, including this one that goes, "I am a happy little cowboy from the Texas prairie land." We had so many other wonderful experiences while in Denmark, including finding a wonderful English-speaking church, the International Church of Copenhagen, that met about a half-mile from our apartment. The church consisted of a number of expatriates and other English-speaking Danes who welcomed us with open arms. They took us to lunch, let us borrow warmer clothes and toys for John, and bent over backwards welcoming us into their community. For us, it was the first time when we experienced the reality of the Universal Church. And that's our trip. You're done. You watched the whole thing. You must really like us to sit through all that. Either that or you're related to us. We'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsors, the American Scandinavian Foundation and the Family Medical Leave Act, that made this trip possible. Hi.